coming in, and a nice practice, but use something instead of something else, basically, plain and simple. And then this chemical could be insecticides or pesticide specifically for that animal. So if I use BT, I'm going to use BT to kill caterpillars. If I use spinosad and I'm going organic, I'm going to use spinosad to kill beetles and other things. It will kill. It will, if you spray it will kill more than that. It'll kill the actual caterpillars. But if I'm just caterpillar specific and I don't want to kill everything else, the honeybees and stuff like that, I don't want to kill them. I'm using BT for caterpillars. Be specific on what you got, but know what you got. Extraordinarily important to know what's doing the damage, know exactly what's doing it. This is growth regulators, cockroaches, dragonflies, and this is for internal house. Again, this program is for the house also, for the house and for, everything, just a total package for your whole home. But there's regulators that control all different kinds of insects now. This is just simple best practices in the garden itself. Raised beds, easier to control weeds, easier to grow, easier to maintain mulch and fertilizer, so we don't have to use as much. Full sun in a vegetable garden, drip irrigation. You see drip irrigation here. This is actually my kitchen garden at home. So this is, well, I know this one pretty well. Proper fertilization, I fertilize every 3 weeks in plant season, the exact same fertilizer, or the exact fertilizer they need, no more, no less than what is needed. Mulch patchways, when I talked about the insects living in the grasses. So around my vegetable garden, you'll see it's always laid in mulch. And I keep my grass very low, cut very low, so there's no weeds. There's weeds in it. I don't care about turf, but there's weeds in it. But the weeds are just cut very low and don't tend to flower and die out, so they don't tend to hold insects. And then protective fencing. This is for my chickens. This is not rabbits. Get all in it, and there's no issues with rabbits. They don't eat this. They've got the whole yard and actually feed rabbits with me, so I like to watch them, so they're not bothersome to me. And actually, every year, this particular bed, when I go to, in this bed in the middle, when I go to peppers and put peppers in this bed, I have a family of rabbits every year that will make the babies, that will make a tunnel and have their babies in here under the pepper plants. They do not eat the pepper plants, but they hide under the pepper plants, and it gives them protection. Very soft and very alluvial soil, so they can get really deep into it. I leave them. I enjoy watching the bunnies. I live with nature. I live with my ecosystem. If I live with my ecosystem and I understand my ecosystem, then I'm okay, and I'll be happy with it. This is the urban farm. This is the farm I have that we're over. My beautiful master gardeners attend it. This is the vineyard, and it is an earth-kind vineyard. The mulch pathways, composted soils. All these grape varieties are American bunch grapes that have disease-resistant rootstock, and they work well with. This is earth-kind, meaning we don't water this. We don't fertilize it ever. I watered it once in 3 years when we had the drought a year and a half ago. And these grow wonderful grapes, and we've made jellies and wines. Our grape jellies won 7 ribbons at the state fair, and we just made our first wine that actually turned into a decent white wine. But it's research wine. Of course, my master gardeners love research and wine, for God's sakes. But this is it can be done. Everything can be grown, and it can be grown in earth kind. It can be grown in IPM systems. You just have to practice. You just have to get the essential knowledge on what you're doing, and basically plan this out. This is the north to south orientation, so I know I get the sun coming. It's coming from east to west over the top, so I get full sun. And there's just lots of things I do to make that work. Evaluate your treatment is the last one. Let's look at the treatment. We're about done. So evaluate your treatment. Did you get the fruit you wanted? Did you get the desired look of your garden? Were your expectations reasonable? Instagram gardenings do not exist. That's nonsense. They're going to have tears. They're going to have holes in the leaf. You're going to have plants that don't do as well. You're going to have things in the garden. That's what you need to think about. How can I make that livable for me, or how can I make it where it's, different type of gardens have different expectations. If I've got a formal garden with all these mounds and all these boxes cut and all these different plants in different shapes, it's going to be a lot harder to maintain that than it would be, our wilderness or organic type gardens that are in different swaths of plants and different ways we landscape. So knowing that, what's your expectations? Are they reasonable? You think your approach did more harm than good? That's something you'll see in the future. If you don't see a lot of birds, or you don't have a lot of insects, or you don't have a lot of pollinated plants, then you know that there's an issue there. You put too much into it. What's great. The only thing about this is the fact it's recoverable in a season. If you mess up one season, change your approach, and you'll be fine the next season. Mother Nature recovers as fast as the fastest thing as anything else does. So she'll recover. She'll get past our mistakes as she always does, and she'll get back into it. What have you done differently? Take a look at what you did. Take a look at what happens and how, if your outcome was what you wanted, and then maybe do something differently and make a different plan. Plan for the next season using your past experience, because you're going to get them again. This is an environment that you made And what you've made is what you've invited into your environment. So these are going to come back. This is the butterfly weed with aphids on it. It's got aphids. It's going to naturally have aphids, but look what else it brings into it. And this is not the best butterfly weed for monarchs, but this is one of the butterfly weeds that grows into my gardens. It just seeds it, and I've got the yellow butterfly, which is more for them, but they come and go. They don't stay in the garden. But this is what we do. If I killed all these, I would kill this. So I want that. And when they come in and when I have them all over the place and I have 100 of them around the back garden flying around, I'm extremely happy I didn't kill those little aphids that aren't doing any harm anyway. So that's kind of the whole general thought about IPM practice. But okay, that got to an hour. Amazing. So you have any questions?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's a lot of really great information. We do have some questions. We have time to answer those. One of them is about using integrated pest management for termites. So currently, they're being sprayed for obviously with poison. Is there any ways around using that extreme measures? Are there any techniques that people can use for termites that don't include the really heavy toxic sprays?
Yeah, the thing about termites are once termites are there, you got to use them. You got to kill them. Okay, you got to kill them out right away. But after you've killed them out, there's certain practices you can do. You can certainly keep you want to keep one practice is you want to keep your shrubs and plants away from the foundation at least 2.5 foot. That way I can see the termites are going to get in the house. If you got brick, whatever your foundation is, you're going to see termite trails, which are just little dirt trails. I don't have a picture one on that, but you'll see where termites are getting into that. Look up termite trails, Google that first and take a look so you know what you're looking at. That's where we get into the house and into the wood, but you're going to have to kill them right away. So we're going to have to go and do a massive major kill. Once you get them out, then you go into IPM after you kill them. IPM will be, you can put traps out for termites. That's where traps do work well. If you've had them, you'll put traps out around the yard. And honestly, termites are a professional application type thing. You're not going to get rid of them yourself. You need professional help, but you can certainly use an IPM system to do termites. AgriLife, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, IPM. Janet Hurley is our IPM specialist. She's got all different applications there, so you can really look in depth at that. But you can certainly use IPM practices once you've got rid of the termites. You don't have any kind of, don't stack wood like cordwood next to the house. That's one big thing. It's things like that. Things that you can do to change it up. If you've got replace softening that's been damaged or anything around there that's been damaged, because once you get damage in wood and it softens up, it's more susceptible to termites to invade there too. But you got to get rid of them first, but there are absolutely things you can do for termites. You can certainly put an IPM plan in action for termites. It's just getting the knowledge. But do go onto the website, our AgriLife website under IPM, and then look at that, because we've got specifics. You can IPM anything, Texas A&M AgriLife, IPM, whatever, and then put whatever the insect is, IPM, and then it'll go to different sheets and different practices and such. So there are things you can do, but you got to get rid of them. You got to get rid of them first. That's number one. It's like wormwood, woodworm. Woodworm has to be dealt with right away. It has to be killed off, or it never goes. It never goes away. So those things have to be killed, and then you put an IPM plan in action.
Awesome. And where would someone buy termite traps? It's like if they're not a professional, where would they find the termite traps at?
You might can find them even at home stores, at box stores, or at nurseries maybe. But you can find them generally where you can buy insecticides, farm stores, farm and ranch stores, things like that. You can probably find termite traps. I would Google to see on Amazon to see where they're available there. We can buy anything online now, so you can certainly buy them online, or you can go to, Google termite traps, purchase termite traps, see where they're shipping them from. There's all kinds of ways you can get them there. And the trap is only going to monitor them. It's not going to stop them from getting termites. It's just going to show you when they're coming and when they're in your environment. And it's not going to trap very many of them. You're going to see them there. You termite bait it, they get into the trap. You see you've got real termites, which are termite. And you got to know if it's termites or if it's one of the wood ants or one of the, exactly what it is again, to make sure you know what you're treating. So that's the most important part of it. But you can find them. You can find them online. I'd probably find them online as easy as anything.
All right. And then there's a question about Are there plants that will deter or kill stink bugs and grasshoppers? And what are your thoughts about encouraging birds with a bird feeder to eat the bugs? Would that work or not?
Well, birds and bird feeders, I feed in the wintertime because I don't want to overfeed the birds in the spring. I want birds. I want birds all over the yard, and I have birds all over the yard. And we do want to feed them. Right now, I've got feeders out. We'll pull the feeders once things start coming into, once everything starts greening up, and I want the birds to eat in the environment first before they eat my seed, because I want them to hunt. You get them fat on seed, they're not going to hunt your insects as much. So. And it's mockingbirds and all kinds of good insectors I've got here. So all kinds of birds and insectors. I like birds in the environment. What was the other part? What was the first part of that?
Are there any things you can plant to discourage?
Oh yeah. There's lots of in the overall companion planting question. There's things called companion plants. Some plants are insector plants. Some plants attract them. Some plants deter them. Lots of plants will deter it. There's lots of different things, like sometimes we'll put different herbs in with our tomatoes and things like that will deter some aphids or some types of insects. Marigolds are one of the detractors for spider mites and different things like that pull spider mites out. They do work longer term in a landscape than they do in a vegetable garden, because vegetable garden is going to be traded out. That's the issues with companion planting. If you went on there online, looked at companion planting, each ecosystem has a certain plant palette in it. And to be in an ecosystem, to develop an ecosystem over a million years, which is what they develop, what you've got to have is everything has to contribute to that ecosystem. There is no plants or no trees or anything in that ecosystem, or animals that just take and don't contribute back to it. So certain plants are called deep root accumulators, which go down in the ground, pull up nutrients and feed the rest of the plants. A redbud is a great example of a legume that actually takes nitrogen from the air, deposits it in pockets in its root system, and we release them in times of need. So it actually releases some nitrogen in the ground. And there certainly are, you can look at insectors. You can go to the websites for insectors, go to websites for plants that attract insects, plants that detract insects. And there's a long list of them, and you can see, and a lot of them are adapted to our gardens here. Yarrow is one of them. That yarrow over there, it attracts some and it deters some. It chases some off. Lots of different ones out there. So there are that you can mix in your gardens. Use that as part of an IPM program. That's your planning program. That's when you want to look at what I want to put in my garden when I'm making a garden, a landscape garden, and even your planting gardens. I can grow herbs and tomatoes and herbs and vegetables together, and they will kind of benefit each other short term, even sometimes with some of the herbs that you use, because some of the herbs are certainly detractors and they will chase insects off. So yes, absolutely. It's a great question, but it is definitely part of IPM practice to plan that.
Awesome. Yeah. I put it in the chat though. When you're talking about tomato hornworms, I have a datura plant that grows back every year. Well, I only let one grow; they tend to spread. But I had success in putting the tomato hornworms on the datura, and they ate those instead. Which, I didn't care about that, because I'm not eating that. So that's an example of like how I use a kind of a trap plant there.
Yeah, and our trap plants are called, and that's what they're called. They're called detect and trap plants. And plants will go to. The marigold is a trap plant we use quite often in a lot of different things. It traps a lot of things that will take it away from the other garden. There's a longer. Is there a lot of research in that? There is some research in it, and it does. We do know that. We do know they detract. We do know that plants do attract and do deter, get insects away from things like that. And in those cases, you just plant them and let them go, but you're going to have to let them mature, and you're going to have to let them go on their own to do this. But look at that. It's also called permacultural practice. It's part of the permaculture is companion planting. Look under companion planting, and it'll tell you what to plant with each other and what to plant, not to plant after one plants, because some plants, you don't want to plant certain plants after a tomato or certain plants after this or that. It'll show you all those. But do look that up when you're planting, because that's an important part of preparation. And that will help you in the long term not run into problems.
Awesome. And you mentioned like squash are not a good beginner plant, but Betsy asked, what plants and veggies do you recommend for a beginner? So what some good?
I always, if I'm doing the basic plant stuff, I'm going to say onions, sweet potatoes, easy to grow, tomatoes, They're not as hard to work as they are peppers, things like that. Things like that are easy to grow. And those are the ones that you're going to get transplants and you're going to put in. Now you can seed carrots, you can seed radishes, you can seed, those are pretty easy to grow also and good for a beginner, as long as you're using raised beds on that. And I always tell a beginner, use a raised bed. If you've never gardened before in your whole life, build you a 4x4 raised bed 1 foot high, and then practice in that 4x4 raised bed 1 foot high. You don't have a lot of money invested, but you got to put good soil in it. You got to build it at least a foot. You got to keep it watered. So build it next to some place where you can water it all the time. And try your practice there before you don't build 10 or 15 beds, because you don't know if you're going to like it. But tomatoes, peppers, broccoli, cauliflower, easy to grow. You put a transplant in, and you just got to get that transplant to develop and mature. Tomatoes, you're going to use this transplant. You're not going to seed in the garden. Peppers, you're not going to seed in the garden. So use some transplants to start you out, and that way you can get some success. Onions, you just put them in the ground and water them and fertilize them a little bit just to get them bigger when you're ready to use them. So those are pretty easy to plant, but it gives you immediate success. It gives you success the first year, and you're happy with gardening. You don't feel like you failed. And people, you know, we don't fail. We make mistakes, and mistakes are curable. So we can fix our mistakes by just going and getting more information. But use easy stuff like that, and you'll be happy, I promise. Greens and things like that. If you get collards, and spinach doesn't grow where our season's not great with spinach. You can grow some, but it's not great. But collards and different things like that. Some of our greens, like our lettuces and stuff, you're going to get insects that are going to chew on them. So be ready for that if you're going to get them. Whereas tomatoes and peppers and things like that, less likely for pests, insect pests. Peppers typically don't have any kind of pests for us. You know, typically we can grow peppers throughout the season and they're okay. So things like that. Use that and start out with that. Just start slow. Start with a couple of different plants and grow what you eat always. One thing that's so funny to me is people come up to me and tell me they grew whatever it was. I grew the biggest watermelon and these melons or whatever they grow. And I said, well, you guys really like the melons? Oh, we don't eat melons. We don't eat them. And I say, I used to hear that all the time. Grow what you want to eat. Don't grow something you don't want to eat. That's crazy.
That's a very good point. I'm the only one in my family that like beets, but I still grow them anyway.
You like it, grow them.
Yep. So Judy asked, what's the most effective on leaf rollers? You talked about that a little bit earlier. They destroyed her beautiful cannas last year. So
yeah, they do. BT early is probably as effective as anything. BT is a bacterium that they feed. It kills them inside out. It's just because it's there and it's on there. But the thing about BT in applications of powder applications, you're gonna have to keep applying it after rain. And all these applications like this, all these organics, they're not systemic necessarily to get into it like that, so they don't get into the plant really deeply into it. Some are systemic, some are not. But BT is probably the best thing, and just know you're going to have them. Know when they come. The best thing is know when you come, or when they come every year, because they're going to kind of come the same time every year, and then start using a little BT in that application around them just to save them. They love cannas and different things like that. They get in there, they roll them up. They roll up about anything, though. I've seen them on peach leaves. I've seen them on all kinds of things when there's an infestation of them, and they're just a pain. You know, they make the plant look ugly, and the destruction is there, but not as much as they make the plants look ugly. So we want to get them off.
All right. And this is a good question here. Can you talk about what pests and disease to look for and how to manage them on melons and cucumbers? And then also, what's the difference between mildew and powdery mildew on vegetables?
Well, powdery mildew is mildew. It's the same thing as the fungi, so it's the same thing. So it's just called differently on different plants. Sometimes the big leaf plants, we generally call it powdery mildew because it manifests itself as a white powder. It looks like somebody put baby powder over the plant. So that's all that difference is. For melons and squash, it's the same thing that it is we have squash beetles, we have cucumber beetles, we have squash bugs. They're all under the cucurbits. They're all the same family. So melons and squash and zucchini are the same family. Just tends to affect squash more than the melons as far as some of those other things. But in melons, you can get squash bugs, you can get cucumber beetles, things like that. The harlequin beetles, things like that are really a lot of little holes in the leaf to start with, and you start seeing holes and start seeing the leaves dying back. And you can get different kind of insects that actually just come and they'll rake the green. You know, they'll get they're called rape eaters. They're going to rake all the green tissue off the top of the leaf and leave like a skeleton of the leaf there. You get those in there for melons too. Melons, they grow fast. They're pretty easy to grow for the most part, but you're gonna have to do some spray. And you're gonna have to look at a schedule if you've got them. If you've had them year before last or year last year, you're gonna have to look at a prophylactic system sprays. I hate prophylactics. I hate preventatives. But in the farm, I'm not gonna not do a spray because our farm donates all the food to shelters. We support 6 homeless shelters, so I cannot not use a chemical to not feed somebody. I'm not going to let somebody go hungry because I didn't use a chemical. So I'm not going to ever do that. And I don't want you to think about this as you're not destroying the world if you use chemicals properly. You're not destroying all the environment if you use it properly for what you're supposed to be using it for. And in those applications, if it's really detrimental to your melons, to your plants, then you got to do something because you want the fruit at the end of it. I've grown cantaloupes and watermelons here and never sprayed anything on them necessarily. But again, I haven't out here I'm out. I'm not in Dallas, so basically I don't have all the pressures that we have in Dallas at my farm. The farm's in Garland, and I got more pressure in Garland than I do out here in Crandall. So it's kind of like where you're at, what you've got before. But they're little striped potato beetles, things like that. Those can be very, very destructive on the plants, on your melons and stuff. But again, because we have such a short period of time here. I don't like Google as much, but do go to the websites. Go to EDUs. It could be Oklahoma State. It could be A&M. It could be whomever, whatever university, and Google this stuff. Put in melons, pests for melons. OSU, Oklahoma State University. Ohio State University is a state university, ag university. And then they'll give you a list of here, but do A&M first because A&M is here for Texas, and we do all our research in Texas. Look it up and see the pests. And we have fact sheets. AgriLife, vegetables, AgriLife, whatever. Go to that website. There's fact sheets which tells you varieties, when to plant, how to fertilize on all these different vegetables and different types of things. So you can really in-depthly read into it, and you can get a little more information that I can give you in a short period of time. So go to that and do study that, do look at that, because we research. Obviously, I research locally. I research in Garland, but our researcher in every county, we have some research because we have an office in every county. So go to that and check that out. But there's a few things you look for in your melons, but you can grow melons. You can grow nice melons here.
So Yvonne asked, do bats eat insects that are bad for your veggies? She's wondering about putting up a bat house, and she knows that bat guano is a good fertilizer.
Well, you can use it. Yeah, you can certainly put up bat houses. Absolutely, bats are good for mosquitoes and things, mainly. They'll eat the smaller stuff like that, and they will eat some of your insects. Bats are always nice to have in your environment. Nice bat, and then the bat guano is a good fertilizer. I don't want you to buy bat guano necessarily in a store because they're stripping ecosystems to get it to that store. It's not natural in our environment here. It would never be part of our environment. Bat guano belongs in a cage. Now, if you've got a bat house and they're pooping, use it in your garden, you're fine. But to go and buy, if I'm choosing fertilizers, if I'm choosing compost, I'm choosing things that would naturally be in my environment, which bat guano would not be in the environment. Not that it's bad. It's just the fact that it's stripping ecosystems, and we're losing cave systems because it's a commodity now, and they're stripping it out. Once you strip out the guano, you stripped out all the insects in there that feed on that guano, that live in that guano, that make eggs and babies in that guano, that feed the bats. So you got populations declining too. So it's a bad thing to strip, like sphagnum peat. We strip the environment, you strip out all the sphagnum. It takes 1 million years to make sphagnum, 2 million years for sphagnum bog fields to reestablish. They'll never reestablish in our lifetimes ever again because we stripped them out. So we got to think on a big picture here. And again, I don't want to get too preachy on this, but my philosophy is I look at a bigger picture across everything. If I'm getting something, if I'm using something, would it be in this environment naturally? And second, and well, it's really 1A, 1B, is if I'm using something abnormal out of the environment, what is it doing for the rest of the world? What is it doing for the other environments? Is it destroying other environments? A lot of these things are hurting other environments, and they're just not here. They're not going to work here. And they work here, but they're not made to be here. So, we can certainly get chicken poop and things that are local and get different. If you want to use manures, you can certainly get better manures. Chicken manure is a great manure because it doesn't harvest seed. So it's as good a manure as you can find, and you can go manureless. I don't use manures in the farm. I don't use any kind of manure in the farm. I use compost. So I use woody compost, composted from wood products, from plants and vegetables. So
All
but
right.
do put up a bat house. Bats are cool. Bats are cool to have.
They are very cool.
Yeah, they are.
I like watching them at dusk, flying
Oh,
around.
they're cool to have. So do put that up.
So one last question here. Is the Oklahoma redbud a good tree to plant near the house? Will the roots likely damage the foundation?
No, the roots will never damage the foundation that's not already damaged. They'll get under and lift it. They'll follow cracks in the foundation. They can't go through concrete to grow. They're going to grow under and around it and stuff. Oklahoma redbud is not a heavily rooted plant. It's a fibrous root plant. Don't put it too close to the house. Give it some breathing room, because we don't want to put our landscapes right up to the house. We want to have a little space. So again, we can look for termites or look for any other issues at the base of the house. Make sure that we're not putting mulch up over the weep holes of your brick if you got brick house. But pull him out. And you can, and if you put him in front of a house, it's a great tree, by the way. Good choice. Oklahoma, Mexican redbud, good choices. Use those. You can find them. If I'm going to a nursery to look for one, I'm going to find one that's got a flat back to it already. And I'm going to use that because a flat back typically will have one really good side. I don't want to have to take a tree and cut him in half to put him next to a house or close to where he's going to grow. So I'm going to get a flat back tree, put him in there 4 foot, 5 foot away from the house at least. And he would be he would grow to the house still. He's still going to grow back and kind of fill in your blank there, but start out that way. I just did a pruning thing Saturday at North Haven and talked about choosing plants for your landscape that cuts down on pruning. Pruning is injury to plants. Pruning is stressful to plants. We have to prune fruit trees. We have to prune a lot of things, and it stresses the plant. So if I can get part of the IPM would be I can find plants I don't have to prune very much or at all. If I want a round bush, let me go find a bush that grows naturally round, so you don't have to keep pruning him and keep him under constant stress of pruning. So, but do it. Use it. It's a great plant. It'll be a nice choice for you. You'll enjoy it.
Awesome. And I did miss one question. I'm sorry. About using diluted Dawn dish soap as an insecticide. Does that work, and what pest would that work on?
Diluted what? I'm sorry. Diluted what?
Diluted Dawn dish soap.
I know it's on a lot. I know it's a kitschy thing to do. I would rather go to the store and buy insecticidal soap, which is horticultural soap. It's surfactant, horticulture surfactant that's made same thing as the soap is. Thing about Dawn is they're antibacterial, and there's a lot of good bacteria they kill in the soil that we want in the soil. And on mild applications, if you use it mildly, does it work? Yeah, it basically smothers them, is what insecticidal soaps do. It's not poisonous to them, it just smothers them. They have air holes out the side generally that they breathe out of, and you cover them with that soap solution, and it suffocates them, so they die. If you're careful with it, if you use small amounts of it, just don't use a whole lot of it in there, and be very specific on spot treatments. It can work. It can be okay, but it's not made for it. And by law, you can only use an insecticide that's labeled for a specific insect or specific plant disease. So by law, federal law, this is not local law, this is federal law. Using that as an insecticide is against federal law. Now, there's no police going to say anything about it. I just mentioned that I want you to understand to read the label and use as directed on labels. That's part of the IPM process too. And I should have put that in. I forgot that one. Read labels and make sure that you're doing exactly whatever choice you're using in a chemical, you're using exactly as it says to be used, because that's how it's tested and marketed to be used that way. But I don't like dishwashing soap. I don't like vinegar in the garden at all. Vinegar is a salt bed. Vinegar connects salts, and it's not natural, and it's very caustic, and it typically burns the tops but doesn't kill the bottoms. And I'm not going to argue with anybody that wants to do that and wants to use it, but I'm telling you, it's not better. It's not the better solution for the ecosystem. And I want to make sure that we're trying to save our ecosystem. Although the heart's there about that, is a better application. It's not better biologically to the ecosystems, and Dawn dishwashing liquid is not biologically better than insecticidal soap to the ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing all of your wonderful knowledge with us today. And thank you for staying afterwards to get all those questions answered. We really appreciate that. I'm going to drop a link in for our chat next year. Next week, we're switching it up a little bit and we'll be doing a green Valentine. So, how to make your Valentine's Day a little bit more environment friendly and working with the environment and the plants. So, be sure to register for that. Yes, and thank you so much. Judy, did you have anything to wrap up with?
No, just thank you, everyone. And this was so informative. Thank you, Jeff.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime, team. Thank you
All right.
all.
Thank you. Everyone enjoy these couple warm days we're going to have before the cold weather hits.
I know. Everybody keep bundled up and make sure you're, watch your baby plants. Make sure they're okay.
Yes. Goodbye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.